Hello, everyone. You're listening to Know It All Haven, your go-to podcast for the curious and the inquisitive. My name's Thomas, and today I've got a riddle for you. If rivers are the main delivery trucks carting salt to our oceans and seas, then why aren't rivers salty themselves? Why does ocean water taste like the world's largest cup of soup, while river water remains fresh and drinkable? If you've ever pondered this, you're not alone. Let's unravel this mystery together. Let's start at the very beginning. Where does the salt in rivers come from? Rainwater may look and feel pure, but as it falls and seeps through rocks and soil, it works like a natural solvent. This process, called chemical weathering, wears away minerals in the ground, dissolving salts like sodium chloride, which is essentially common table salt, and washing them into streams and rivers. So, contrary to what you might think, river water always contains some salt picked up along its winding journey. How do rivers become couriers of salt to the ocean? It's all about constant movement. As rivers flow, they transport those dissolved salts and minerals from land to sea. You can think of the world's oceans as giant end-of-the-line collectors. They're where all this salty cargo ends up and accumulates over time. But here's the big question. If rivers are constantly delivering salt, shouldn't they taste salty too? Turns out, it's all about concentration. On average, river water contains about 0.01% salt. That's roughly 0.1 grams per liter, a pinch in a big jar. Meanwhile, seawater is a whopping 3.5% salt. That's about 35 grams per liter, or about 35 times more than rivers. That's why we talk about freshwater rivers and saltwater oceans. It's a subtle difference that our tongues definitely notice. But why don't rivers become more salty as they flow? There are three main reasons. First, river water doesn't hang around for long. It's moving, tumbling, and rushing toward the sea. The salty minerals don't have a chance to build up to high concentrations before being swept away. Second, rivers are always getting a dose of fresh water from rainfall. Every cloudburst or drizzle dilutes the river, lowering the saltiness. Nature, in a way, is constantly flushing out the system. Third, river ecosystems are alive. Plants and tiny microorganisms actually use up some of the dissolved salts as part of their life processes, helping to keep the salt level in check. Now, let's circle back to the oceans. Why do they get saltier and saltier over time? Every year, trillions of liters of water evaporate from the surfaces of oceans. But here's the trick. As water vapor rises, it leaves the salt behind. The evaporated water eventually returns to land as rain, picking up more minerals and repeating the cycle. Over millions of years, the oceans act as giant salt banks, collecting and storing the world's supply of dissolved minerals. Can rivers ever be salty? Occasionally, yes. Rivers in very dry or hot regions, like parts of Australia or South America, may have higher salt concentrations. If a river doesn't make it to the sea, maybe it dries up in a salty lake or evaporates away in the desert. The salt can become more concentrated. But for the vast majority of rivers, the flow is too fast and the supply of fresh water too plentiful for them to ever get truly salty. Let's wrap it all up. Rivers aren't salty even though they deliver salt to oceans for a few simple reasons. Their water is constantly refreshed. It swiftly carries salt downstream before it can build up, and living creatures use some of that salt along the way. Oceans, on the other hand, are like nature's big vaults, stockpiling salt because it gets left behind every time water evaporates. If rivers weren't fresh, life on land would be very different and much tougher. In summary, rivers are the world's salt couriers, but their speedy flow and constant supply of fresh water keep their salt levels low. Oceans are nature's salt warehouses, storing up salt for millions of years. Both rivers and oceans play vital roles in Earth's water and mineral cycles, systems that make life as we know it possible. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into one of nature's fascinating puzzles. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to Know It All Haven, and tell your friends too. That way, you'll never miss an episode. Until next time, this is Thomas, wishing you a fresh and curious week.